Hey guys, in our last video, you saw us go over an unboxing of these Docan LN300 batteries. And we just did a first impression visual check on them to make sure nothing was, visually wrong with them. And there were a few things that we didn't like, some issues that popped up, but they weren't huge. However, after using them, we did come across some pretty huge issues, and we're going to get into that in just a minute. But first, I'm going to go over some of the fixes that we made on these. So one of the first things are the covers that go over the terminals. There were these little acrylic things right here. These guys, really hard to get off. You feel like you're going to break it. So I jumped on the old computer, designed up these guys, 3D printed them, and they just snap on like that. Way easier. The other thing was the cables are sagging. And again, just designed this guy up right here. It is ugly. It probably uses too much filament, but whatever. It does the job. Now the cables are resting. I'm going to make one for this side over here too to hold those up, because those are actually a little heavier and those are pulling down more. And you can just take this in and out if you need to. And then the temperature sensors, we actually haven't done it yet, but just taping those down on top of the cells. But that is the least of our worries. We have had some major problems, so take it away, buddy.
Okay, yeah. And as far as like we're talking about that, this cable management down here, one thing I wanted to mention is the problem with it. We didn't really say maybe 100% what the problem is, but you're going from one circuit board to another circuit board. That's over 18 inches of just unsupported. This is kind of weighing down on the cables. That's a little ridiculous for that long of a run. I mean, I know you can have ribbon cables running, some length and all, but that was important to at least hold those up, because as all you're relying on is the strength of this board and these terminal connections on a circuit board. Kind of ridiculous. We'll get into a couple things. There's several things, and we have physical problems or issues, in our opinion, and we also have the guts of this thing that are just the internals. There's a couple things that are just kind of out of control. We bought these with the intention of buying them, bringing them in. We needed them really quick. We needed some quick storage. So we're just going to use them. We bought them. We didn't get them free. We're not doing a review for Docan or anything. We just needed some storage because we're going to run a freeze dryer. And we need to be able to run 24 hours a day. And the storage we had was inadequate. We thought, great, we'll get these. We'll wheel them in, hook them up, turn them on, and everything will work. And they sort of do. So, Mr. Cameraman, do you want me to go over the good or the bad first? The pros or cons?
You might as well do the good first.
Okay, the good. They kind of work. It's a box. It's protected. It's fine. It's just okay. You turn the BMS circuit thing on, it works. You flip the breaker in the back, you get 51 point whatever volts coming out of it. And we actually have one cycling right now, so we know they work. But that's where the pros stop. So we'll get to some of the cons. We'll go physical and the guts, like I said. First, the physical. When we got it, we didn't really know. Like, these have been out for just a little while, but we never really looked at the inside of a build. Maybe that was bad on us. And, well, I didn't realize they were stacked this way, because most of these verticals, they're stacked on top of each other, and it's a smaller footprint. But when we got them open, it's like, wow, this is okay, because they're naturally oriented facing up. That was cool. Now, you can get to the top. You can see, with the exception of the faux BMS that we'll talk about, you can get to everything up top. However, trying to get to something on the bottom, let's pretend like we need to get to that back, some of the terminals on the back. It ain't going to happen, and there's no access door on the back. That is a very interesting oversight. However, once again, these were probably designed to just work, and they don't work, and that's a problem. So anyway, we're looking at this thing like we can't do anything with this bottom row without taking the top row of cells out. I don't understand that. A little bit strange. So the physical, let's see, there's something else on the physical. We'll talk about this real quick. So the first one we put in service, that actually is in service working, charging and discharging, these bolts that go into, there's 4 of them, 2 positive, 2 negative, that go into the back. These things that Jordan built that covers for, because the ones that came with it are kind of ridiculous. So the first set, we screwed them in, everything worked. But when we started messing with the battery number 2, we'll call it, and battery number 3, these bottom out before they even tighten down when you have a lug in there. I mean, if you had 2 lugs stacked, you might get them to tighten, but it's like it's a 5/8 inch bolt where it really needed to be a 1/2 inch. So it's impossible to actually tighten these things, tighten the lugs down. Now, to me, that's a level of absurdity that's kind of hard to wrap my mind around, because
it was an easy fix for us because we have the tools to, just shorten the bolts down.
yeah,
But for the average person, they may not have a belt sander or something to, shorten those down.
and that's exactly what you did. You took them and fixed one of them to make sure it was going to work. That was good. We can deal with it. You go to the store maybe and get some more, but this is like a 25-cent item or something like that. So 2 of our 3 batteries, you can't even tighten a lug down onto it without adjusting the bolt. Okay, let's go beyond that. So that's part of one of the strange battery build things. Now we'll talk about the internal part that's just a little bit over the top. Okay, we hook them up and we're going like, yay, we got number 1 running. And we're looking, let's go to the software first and some of the support we got up in the beginning. The software was hard to find. This isn't a problem now. I think you can probably get your software for your PC, and if you get the correct app, you'll be doing okay. They pointed us to initially a thing called BMS Meta. Don't go there. BMS Meta is like a pointless app. It didn't even work. It got like 1.3 star reviews. I think one person might have said it worked, and the rest were 1-star reviews. It's actually called BMS Insight. I won't even open it there. And if you get an Android, if you want it for Android, you have to go to some sketchy website. I say sketchy, I don't even go to it because it's like some strange, .com. But you can go to the Apple Store and download the BMS Insight. So if you have an iPhone or an iPad, I would recommend just using the Apple one. And it actually works with the Apple, it's fine. Funny thing is, it doesn't have some of the features. It's okay. It gives you the basics, but it's more for monitoring, and you can set a couple of parameters. Now, for setting these things up, the software in this app, we have to do a shout out to the DIY Solar Forum, because we've been on that for quite a few years, and there's a lot of good information there. And our good friend, who we have no idea who he is,
Outlaw Solar.
he's the one that kind of got us hooked up where we could actually get this software up and running. Appreciate that.
Outlaw Solar.
Otherwise, we had still been fumbling around trying to get, get into this software so we can actually look at it. Okay, so the software was initially a problematic. I think it's okay now. It's called DS something is your file that you can find on the Docan Power website under this particular battery, under the downloads. So BMS Insight, and then go to the Docan Power website, click under downloads, and you'll find the software there. It actually works. So we can monitor it. So when we started monitoring, initially it was like, oh great, the delta between these cells, the high and low cell is only about 9 millivolts. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. When we started charging it, we had another battery hooked in, so I didn't notice this at first, but it's like this thing was just cutting on, and then it was working, and then it would go into overprotect, single cell overprotect. I don't think the full pack that we've been cycling has gotten above 54.9 volts. I went back on the history and I found 54.9, and we have a cell cut off, and it's always cell number 2. Cell number 2 seems to run away. Same thing on this one. Cell number 2 seems to run away. As a matter of fact, on our software, it continues to persist to be the maximum, showing the max. This thing's sitting there balancing, but cell 2, now it's cell 3. So between cell 2 and 3, I think 1, 2, 3, and 4, they're really too charged up. What that means is these were not balanced from the factory. They were totally, I don't know what. they were way out of balance. So when we start putting a charge on it, it's kind of interesting. Cell 1 through, on this pack, I believe it's cell 1 through 7 or 8. It kind of varies back and forth. They'll be running up into 3.5 and some change category. You've got cell 2 or 3 going into 3.6 and then going above and then doing a cutoff. But the odd thing is cells between 8 and 16, one of these is cell 7 to 16. They're still running 3.3 and some change, 3.35 or, what are we talking about here? 3.342. So you have a very large imbalance while cells 1, 2, and 3, and 4 are running away from the pack. So we thought, okay, great. An active balancer. This was pushed as a 5 amp active balancer. When we bought it, I could care less. We've been running DIY builds with the 230 amp hour, ironically, Docan cells that have been perfect. We've been running those things for years, and they have just the low cost, that cheap 100 amp JBD BMS on it. It's got like a really low powered active or passive balancer, and they stay in balance pretty good after a long time. So we've never had to mess with them. So I had never thought about active balancer, though we do have one on the shelf. We have a knee balancer. So I thought, great, these are so out of balance, we'll put that active balancer in. Well, we can take one on the con side and put like a big red line through it, because this active balancer, it's doing nothing. And that's why I would just call it a faux balancer. It's just sitting there for show. And we asked the Docan people, we said, how do you turn it on? Where's the Bluetooth? How do you control it? Because originally they gave me an app that was BMS Med and said control it through that. There's no Bluetooth signal. It's actually, there's nothing plugged into it for the Bluetooth part. And so we realized after a while that this thing just didn't work and there's nowhere to control it. I've looked in this software. So if anybody knows how to get this Lanny or Lanai active balancer to work, it's LANNI. If you know how to get that thing to work, please tell us, leave some comments, because we're just like, we've pulled our hair out for that one and just come up to the conclusion that it just doesn't work. Even though they're saying that it's supposed to work and it's supposed to be automatic, there's nothing in the software that's actually doing it. And we sit and watch it. I've watched the balancing, and boy, if that's a 5 amp balancer, that's a pretty weak 5 amp balancer, because it's not doing hardly anything. And so, okay, then you say, well, stop whining and complaining and do something about it. Get down there and balance them. Well, the problem is at least 2 of the cells are on the bottom row. So we can come in, I've already hooked a power supply up and tried to balance some of the top ones on the one that we have in service. I was able to get like cell 11, 12, or 10, 11, 12, I was able to bring them up and kind of get those juiced up a little bit. And that was okay. Nothing, that pack still is messed up. But the problem is cell 8 on the bottom is one we need to juice up as well. And we can't get to it. That's what I'm saying. We're complaining heavily. There's no access door in the back. You can't get to anything. You can't do anything without taking the top row out. So if we really want to balance these, we have to take all of this stuff out, from what I can tell, or cut a hole in the back of this thing and be able to get to it. So we're kind of at the end of trying to understand why they built it this way. Anyway, we're having such a problem with the balancing that it's just absurd. Like, we should be able to get in there and take care of it. What I'm doing right now with battery 1 is we have it hooked up to the system. We're trying to work the solar. I'm trying to juice the top cells up, see if we can do anything. But like I say, I still got to get underneath it somehow and put the coals into cell number 8 on the bottom. Okay, battery number 2, same problem. We haven't even looked at 3 really good yet, but battery number 2 is suffering the same thing. The cells on the top plus 1 or 2 on the bottom, they need to be juiced up a little bit, or the top ones need to be brought down, but we can't do either with the arrangement of these cells. So what I'm doing is trying to be a wise guy is we have a 5 amp power supply, and this is going to take months, literally months to do this. But we have a 5 amp power supply. All I'm doing, got the positive and negative hooked up, turn the battery on, and then we put some charge to it. But as you can see on the software, if we look at the software, we have cell over voltage protect turned on. It's activated because it hit 3.63. Now I'll tell you why I put 3.63 in here real quick, because we put the YR1035 plus on it, and the cells were reading a little bit higher in real life over what the BMS was showing. We don't know which one to believe right now. So I went to 3.63 for the overvoltage current cutoff. We'll deal with that later. So anyway, what this thing does is it'll put in, I've got it set for putting in like maybe 3 amps or something. And all I'm trying to do is juice up these cells. In this case, it's cell 7 through 16. And you can see right there you can see on the screen, so we're running 3.5 plus, and I've got cell number 6 is 3.48. Those 6 cells actually come up when it's charging. They don't match, but they get fairly close. But then cells 7 through 16 stay down in this 3.34 range. This could take months to do this, because all it does is it runs up, overvoltage protection stops the charger, it cuts the charge current off, and then it sits and balances on the way down. So I've got it to run down to, I think the release is 3.47 volts. Sound like a good number. So at 3.7 it releases, charges back up for a while, a few minutes, 10. I've never, haven't calculated how long it charges, haven't paid attention to it. It charges up, it's balancing the whole time those upper ones are balancing. And there is no active balancing, as we say, because that would be putting current in these upper ones into these lower ones. Ain't happening. So all we're getting is some kind of weird low powered passive balancing to bleed these down while these were trying to build up. And anyway, like it's just ridiculous. We don't know where to go from there, other than I'll probably take the balancer out and take a look at it, unplug it, get rid of it. Now, here's the negative part. This is a con that'll kind of blow your mind with these things. If you're an end user, you expect it to work. Okay, we have 2 options. One is to rip all the top cells out and get this thing and balance it all up. You know, like take it apart, do a proper top balance on these things. Or we can do this. We can take the upper cells out so we can get to the lower cells, replace the BMS. It's a Darren BMS, which we don't recommend, never heard of them before, and put in like a JK BMS into it that has active balancing. We could do that. Again, active balancing doesn't get me excited about anything because we've never had problems with it, but at this point, that's what I would put in is a JK. I think they're like the version 19, they say V19 is okay. It's got a 2 amp active balancer, but that's going to be kind of a rewire. And we've got to get into the back panel and fix the back panel because your RS-485s, your CAN bus and all those ports are different, so it would take a little Dremel work to get this fixed up. All we're saying here is you're going to have to decide whether you want one of these things and if you want to go through the trouble. Now, when we get done with these, they're going to work fine. They'll be good. We'll be happy with them. But the question is, would you buy one knowing you had to do all this work? Again, we have no affiliation with Docan or anything other than we've used their raw prismatic cells. They've been great. This thing isn't so great, and we're going to work on it. We're going to get it to work eventually. And our problem is if you go, well, send it back to them, it ain't happening. We're in Alaska. We have to figure out how to make this stuff work, because shipping this stuff back and forth on the barge lines can be a little bit costly, and so we're not going to do that. And I don't know, is there, cameraman, if you were to get one, if you were to need one, would you buy one of these things? I guess that's the question.
Nope, I wouldn't buy one. But we might have some more coming up, some different ones. little bit of a spoiler, but that we're not going to say anymore. You know, we got to keep testing stuff out. But anyways, I think that's it. I wouldn't buy them. We don't recommend them as they are. However, they did say that they're going to fix them.
They just said they were going to fix them, but how is that going to benefit all the people like us that have them already?
Right. Yeah, nothing. We got nothing. We're just the testers. We're just doing this for free.
Yeah, beta testing.
We're the testers for them. That's kind of not really cool. So, you know, you spend your own money on this. Yeah, we're testing these for a company. So be sure, if you like this kind of videos, like us reviewing stuff like this at our own expense, then please subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave a comment, and join our Patreon, subscribe, start, and buy me a coffee. And we will see you in the next one.